kind
like,
of used to it.
I'm used to sort of having my own party in my own head, right? And, it's worked out for me. Also my parents are great. My dad is a fabulous, he's a he's a kind of a legend. He started out like, when he was this is my talking about my father, Stephen M. Johnson. Yeah, I'm so unprofessional I haven't even introduced us. Well, for all of our two viewers, um, I'm Alex S. Johnson and I'm fucking awesome. And I do this
That you are.
and I do this show, the Small Bear Show. I have friends on who are creative friends and pals and people I like so much because they have the right value system. And to me, it's more important to have the right value system than anything else because there's a lot of people who are creatives, people like Nicole, people like Aaliyah, people like Hazel,
Aw, thank
who
you.
are in, I mean, I spent a lot of time in Hollywood, and the whole, and Nicole knows all about that, right? In with heavy metal and and also there's a lot of overlap with the film industry, of course, which, again, Nicole is part of. And there's a lot of really a real dark side to the whole entertainment industry. And so have just having been in the close vicinity of rock stars is something that I have experienced for decades, and it's not enough, right? It's not enough. It's not sufficient to be famous, for me, because people just die. People will just like, if you ever seen the movie, like, Decline of Western Civilization Part Two, which I always watch that because I think it's a trip, right? How these bands like Odin are being promoted by Ben Gazzari, who I don't think is with us anymore either. Right. And that was going to be the next big thing, right? And then we had um our mutual friend Carrie Lee Chrome who founded the Runaways, and she she had a horrible experience she's still grappling with, dealing with. So it's insufficient to be famous. It's what I like to see is people like, the late great Ronnie James Dio had really good values and good morals, and Lemmy Kilmister had good values and good morals, and to me, they were exemplary. And I wanted to do something like that. For me, Nocturnicorn Books is sort of like having an intimate party with rock stars, like you can open one of our books and it's an immersive experience. It's kind of like being there. It's as close as you're ever going to get. And as with my background as a rock journalist, you bringing in people like Carrie, bringing people like Jerbo and David J. Haskins and Ethan Maroulis from Spawn Ranch, Tara Van Flower, who I was introduced to by Jerbo, and Byron Roberts from Ball Sagoth, and then Lucifer Fulci, David St. Erie from 45. Well, he was he was with a band called Penis Flytrap, and I know that always cracks Pickles up,
I laugh every time.
and which had Dinah Cancer from 45 Grave as their singer, and then now he's in a band called Lords of October. And so um, we're just sitting here with some really exceptionally bright and talented creative people. And I guess just, with the little rectangles that I have on my screen, right? Starting to my direct right. I can't
Mm.
that's pretty good of me that I didn't say you were on my left.
Mm.
Little dyscalculia humor. But okay, so Aaliyah Celeste Williams is is absolutely absolute knockout.
Ah,
I'm
thank you.
extremely in love with Aaliyah,
So sweet.
but so she is a very unusual person. Okay, she's very very talented, and she loves animals, and she's kind of animal-esque. What I
Mm.
mean is that she reminds me of kind of like her eyes are beautiful, and they're sort of like can see
Aw.
animals peeping through it, sort of like a rabbit or something, like behind a hedge or something like that. It's like, oh my goodness, there's a rabbit. So what's it doing there? Is it up to
Aw.
shenanigans? Right? Is it up to trouble? Is mischief? She's she never fails to surprise me with what she's thinking, and
Aw.
a lot of depth that and a lot of soul and a lot of heart and a lot of strength to her. And
Aw.
we became friends about 3 years ago. It seems like a lifetime that we've, you know, just just like had each other's back, and and we've been through so much. We've been through the death of her mother, and through a lot of her working for Taco Hell, which she's now back on. We during this time that we've known each other, we've she kind of she was so encouraging to me that with my even with my brain
Aw.
disease and my chronic pain, she kind of was so accepting of me that I thought, well, why don't I start writing again? I'd had a writing career since the 90s. And when I started out with, you know, in magazines like Blood Songs with people like Edward Lee um and then Poppy Z. Bright and Caitlin R. Kiernan. And I was in on the ground floor of a lot of that kind of thing. Nancy Kilpatrick, because I know the late, Nancy Kilpatrick. We were friends. And and I we collaborated on the Friday the 13th Jason X series. And then but then I was also in rock and roll too. And so um I'd done so many books. I'd written so many books and edited so many anthologies. But then I thought, I'll never be able to write again. I'll never be able to edit again. I'll never be able to speak again, literally, because of the brain trauma, and which is ongoing. But then Pickles was so accepting. She was like, "Oh, well, and we were talking and talking and talking, and then I said, "Hey, Pickles, maybe you'd like to see some of my books, right?" So I sent her
Mhm.
chunks of Barf Zaro
Yeah.
anthology. She loved it, right? We
Mhm.
talk about everything. We talk about our favorite films. I introduced her I mean, everybody knows who Peter Jackson is, but did they did they necessarily know that he directed one of the greatest films ever made? I'm not talking about Citizen Kane or The Lord of the Rings or The Godfather. I'm talking about, of course, Meet the Feebles. This is a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece of wrong cinema.
Uh,
So not only did Pickles helped me encourage me to get back on my feet, and we saved each other's lives, but we collaborated on a book of dark poetry, which got a rave review in Cemetery Dance magazine, which is
aw,
the magazine of choice for us for a certain Stephen King. And so she's also a fine artist and an animal rights activist and a civil rights activist. And she doesn't really do that much now because, you know, it's hard and because you have to work and you have to support yourself and your loved ones.
I
And
just kind of try to like, keep a little bit of a low profile about it. Like
right,
I
yeah,
do some stuff, but like
yeah,
I just I just don't talk about it all the
I
time.
know, right, yeah. Well, let's see this the
Unless it
sign. I
comes
mean,
up.
there's some people who just,
I,
who are like virtue
But
signaling all the time, right? They're
if
like,
I see a good petition though,
yeah,
or like something that's a good cause, I'll share it like on
yeah.
Facebook or something though, because especially if it has to do with animals, because
Especially if it has to do
you
with
know,
animals. And I love this idea.
and we're all animal lovers.
I love Nicole's idea of doing a collective paw anthology. We're going to talk about that a little bit.
Hmm.
And so then, so that's Pickles. And then Nicole ate six. So from what I've been able to gather, and well, Nicole is represented in, I guess the easiest thing to do would, for everybody, I mean, um, is just, we have, just one fix, a literary salute to William S. Burroughs, right? And Nicole is represented in with the story Twin Graves. Let's see, where does that
Oh, I
come?
thought you were using Obscura. Did you change it?
Actually, yeah, because what I decided is that there's so much material.
Yeah.
There's so much material that I wanted to do something a little bit different, just like you have an album and you would put out like a special edition. You'd have a whatever double vinyl, whatever with B-sides and rarities and stuff. So I decided to put out both. So
Oh, okay.
so this
What
has an
was yours called
alternate
again? I'm
table of
sorry.
contents, right? It has all the core stuff and um like but there's some things that are different with the junk merchants too. It's going to be a whole lot more stuff. I'm going to take out some of these things and the first and then I'm going to publish the first story that you sent me. So and I'll be sending you a package with this, to your friend. And so this is really, I really want to get into talking about the Burroughs book and the Bauhaus book. So Nicole is a filmmaker. She's an actress. Are you a musician as well, or
No,
okay, you're not a musician. Okay. Um, and you write horror stories with a kind of a dark um, noir quality, which I enjoy very much.
thank you.
And you're welcome. And and from what I understand, you're also an artist, right? Is that correct? Is that correct?
I don't do it as much anymore, but I definitely
Yeah.
still sketch sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
There was a while there I was selling my work pretty regularly, but I just wanted to focus on writing because it's my passion.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. And what I gather this music is one of your passions as well. I mean, you're not a musician, but you do are inspired by
Oh, I
music
love
a lot.
music. Yes.
Yeah.
I have many playlists. I go dancing like every Friday. I love music.
Cool. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
me too. I mean, that's what inspires me. I couldn't live without music and music is behind all of the work I do. Everything I do is inspired by music. So this is why I created these anthologies. And
Some of my stories are actually inspired by songs.
right, yeah.
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 Cool.
So what are some of the stories you've written that came out of songs?
Well, that one that you were going to use or might use, Obscura, that
Yeah.
one comes from the song by the Wallflowers, One Headlight.
Oh, I didn't know
Cool.
that. No, I'm
That's
actually going to
that's
use
a
that
good song.
in junk
Yeah.
notes too. Yeah, I'm just sort of rotating. So, um, yeah. And also, you're an actress. You're in Death Park too,
Yes, we just started filming.
right? How long have you been an actress, and what are some of the roles that you've done?
So I first moved to Los Angeles in 2009.
Mhm.
And I had done a little bit of like drama, like theater stuff, but I'd never
Sure.
been in a movie. And I don't know if you know who James Wan is. He directed the Saw movies originally, and now he
Oh
does
yeah, sure,
Insidious, The
sure, yeah, of course,
Conjuring.
of course, yeah.
Right. He's like one of the biggest directors in horror. And him and my friend Hank Braxton, Hank wrote the script and James directed it. It never came out. It was called Haunted Antiquities.
Nice.
And it was about this doll, which later became Annabelle, is what happened. But at the beginning, it was just
Oh
a little
wow.
doll, and things were happening in the house. and they lost one of their actresses, and I was with them at a party, and they said, would you be willing to come on set tomorrow and play Sister Dumber 2?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
said, sure. Like, it was my first time being on film.
Yeah.
And like, I'd been friends with James for a long time
Sure.
because we were both friends on MySpace back when he was like starting out his career. And we
Yeah.
just stayed friends. Like, we're still friends now on Facebook.
Yeah.
And he like takes the time to talk to me. And it's really cool. Like, I know he's super busy now, like
Yeah.
insanely
Right.
busy, but he's still very like, he didn't forget about me, or like, our friendship's still there. And I really like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first time I acted. And James told me, and it was such an honor to have someone like James tell me this. He said, you were very natural. And
Nice.
that's kind of what I get from when I'm acting is the way I look at it is I just act like myself if that was my character, if I was that person. I don't know how to
Yeah.
explain any different than that.
Yeah.
Like
That makes sense.
in Return to Death Park, I'm going to be a bounty hunter. And so
Nice.
I like put on a leather dress, I put my hair in a braid. And I was just like, I had told the story. I got bit by a snake in Tucson. Just really got
I
into it.
love it. I love it. I haven't actually seen. I ordered Death. Was it Death Bitch? Is it called
Yeah.
Death Bitch? Yeah. I'm really looking forward to that one. But I really love the kind of the flavor of these movies. They seem very very tongue in cheek, very noir, very LA, and very funny. And what you were saying about acting as though as if you were you, but that character. As I interviewed the actress Caroline Munro in London back in 1997. And she was telling me, I was asking her what it was like to act opposite, Christopher Lee in Dracula AD 1972.
Mm-hmm.
She said it was just like when you're a kid, sort of you're like playing. It was like playing. And I, you know, I'm really fascinated by acting because I had one of my friends was the late Catherine McGregor, who was played Mrs. Olson in Little House on the Prairie, and she was kind of like this larger than life person, really, and she kind of mentored me and helped me out a lot. And also I edited a book by Tom Sullivan, who was, he was an actor as well as he's still around, musician, and so I got a lot of sort of insight from that. I'm really interested in the kind of the genesis of this, like the, well, death bitch. We couldn't have Mary on the show, but how did death bitch originate?
I don't know enough about it to tell you. I know that
Okay.
Mary and Ken are partners, and they came up with it together.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't heard the whole story. I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. Okay, okay, yeah, that's no worries. Um, and so before that, from what I've read, and you also
I
you
can tell you this. The
yeah.
Return to Death Park is the sequel to the Death Park Killer,
Oh,
and
okay.
Ken himself actually plays the Death Park Killer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's good. It's won some awards. There's been a lot of talk about it. Death Bitch did too, and so it's like I'm very
Wow.
proud of them and happy for them.
That's really great. Yeah, I'm really, congratulations. That's awesome. And
And
congratulations
another
to
positive
them. Yeah.
thing is the fact that they pay everybody. A lot of
Wow.
people won't pay people. Like, you're very good about paying people too, and I really respect when people pay people for their art,
Yeah.
because it's hard being an artist, and like
Yeah.
working for exposure just isn't fair.
It isn't
Yeah,
fair.
it
It
is
isn't
so
fair.
hard. I
It isn't fair.
agree. It's so competitive. I went to school for fine arts, and I always wanted to be an artist, and I am, but I mostly just almost usually do it as like therapy or just for practice. And I love drawing and painting people, but it is hard to sell art, and it's hard to get like a decent income off of it. It's so competitive. I'm not like a super competitive person that wants to like compete with other people and stuff, but
Right.
it would be so nice to be able to do that to make a living, though. That would be so cool.
Did you guys ever
I'm
see?
really grateful that I got into celebrity catering, because it's a way for me to still be in the industry and still have a side job. and it
Uh-huh.
really makes it easier on me because before I was working and I wasn't enjoying myself because it wasn't artistic. And so I'm glad I
Right.
have a job now that, I mean, the art is the food, but it's still artistic to me.
Yes, it is.
You know
Okay,
what? It was
interesting.
interesting that I just thought of, like, as a connection. Um, and I don't know if you weren't on the show with Amelie Frank, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So we have a friend who's a really good friend of ours, who's part of the whole kind of LA network of, like, involved with Beyond Baroque, Literary Arts Center, and her name is Emily Frank, and she's a publisher, an editor, and poet, and she's been recognized by, like, the city of Los Angeles for her contributions to the arts. And she's also published, like, Ellen Mabey, and she's worked with Joe. I'm not the guy who he wrote Razored Saddles, Joe Lansdale, Joe Lansdale,
Okay.
right? And so, as a matter of fact, she published two books that I can show you. One through Sacred Beverage Press. Okay, this is about the karma bumps, and this was there's a point to this. The karma bums were kind of like this. So there was these group of poets who were kind of neo beat poets back in the day. I think it was like the the 80s. They came out of the sort of punk rock, really. A lot of people like Exene Cervenka and our, you know, dear friend Ellen Mabey and S.A. Griffin and who else was in this um in and around this place. It was a kind of a watering hole called the Iguana Cafe, right? And they also used to read at Al's Bar and stuff. So it's really exciting time. And so they went kind of on this odyssey. It was really sort of like On the Road or the Merry Pranksters, and they would just go to these out of the way spots and go to these cafes or galleries or record shops, and they would just perform. They didn't have an agenda. It was real hippie, real counterculture, and so they called themselves the Karma Bums after the Dharma Bums, of course, right? And this is the book that came out of it. It's called A Spoken Word Odyssey, Twisted Cadillac by the Karma Bums. And this is the bus. They called it what farther. Well, one of the original
Further.
further, yeah, the original bus was called. I get them mixed up. It was like
Oh no, it's okay.
was further. I think this was farther, or maybe the other way around. At any rate, it's sort of inspired by the Merry Pranksters and Jack Kerouac and Ken Kesey and all that stuff, right? And so this is our lovely friend Ellen Mabey, right? Who are having on the show on Tuesday, and if you can, you're both welcome. You're all welcome to be on the show if you can on Tuesday with us, with me and Emily Frank, and so this is Ellen Mabey, giggling songstress of the spoken word, and she's her. This is the book that I always show because this is the book that was published by Henry Rollins and edited by Exene Cervenka, right? And with photographs by Viggo Mortensen, right? So,
Wow.
right, yeah. So
That's a
it's
lot of good names.
it's a lot of good names. 21361, right? That's Henry Rollins and his birth date. And it was actually Henry Rollins. I don't know him. I mean, we've had like one email exchange, but his 21361 inspired me to create Nocturnal Corn Books. And so, um, at any rate, Emily Frank is the web mistress, and she's in head of Billy Bob Thornton's fan club, right? So, so I was watching Billy Bob on Stephen Colbert, and he was telling this story about how when he was living in his car in LA and he was kind of struggling, he was trying to, break into acting and everything else. And he got a job catering. And so he went to this mansion in the Hollywood Hills. And it was a bunch of celebrities, whatever. So he was serving canapes or he was serving appetizers or whatever, right? And there was this little guy with a thick German accent, and he was he was serving up the whatever the meals and or the drinks or whatever it was. It was just catering service. And this man says, "You want to be an actor, right?" And he said, "Yeah. How did you know?" And he said, uh, everybody wants to be actor here. And so, do you
Mhm.
write? Do you write? Right? And he said, well, yeah, I've been working on some things. That thing happened to be Sling Blade, right? And he said, you should write. So it turned out that the short guy with the thick German accent was Billy Wilder, right? And and so I think that Billy Bob seems to be very, very down to earth and very, very genuine guy. I respect him a lot. He was a mutual friends with the late great Lemmy Kilmister. I've got my little Lemmy stand-up thing. I got this Lemmy Kilmister stand-up, right? Because I love Lemmy so much. Lemmy was a really sweet
Got
guy.
to know Lemmy at the Rainbow.
Yeah,
I worked
right.
at the Rainbow for a little bit, and
Yeah,
Lemmy
right.
obviously was a regular there.
He was a
And
regular there. Yeah,
he would order like not barbecue, buffalo chicken strips,
yeah,
and he would originally would get a Jack and Coke. Then his doctor kind of told him he had to take it easy with drinking, so he started
right,
ordering screwdrivers.
right.
And he always had the coolest socks on. Like he
Oh
like would wear
man,
these like regular black clothes and then like these fun funky socks. I remember
nice.
that.
Yeah, that's a great anecdote. Yeah, that's
He
funny.
loved to gamble. Like you can tell that from his music, but like he would
Right, yeah.
gamble while he was there.
Right, yeah. He loved those slot machines, right? That he would always play those slot machines, yeah.
He would play the scratchers, he would play
He
the
loved
Keno.
right. Yeah.
He just loved
Yeah.
gambling.
Yeah, your dad on the movie, right? He said something about like how his his obsessive focus on these video games was like a heavy metal meditation, right? Because he would get a Jack and Coke and a little secret ingredient which Nikki didn't say in the movie, but which was amphetamines, right? And um, and yeah, man. So that is wild. So I want to move on to Hazel and Lynch, who's been very, very patient. And Hazel, my goodness, where do I even start? So when do we met about what 6 or 7 months ago, I think. Could have been, you know, could have been more recently, could have been earlier, but Hazel was one of my friends on Facebook, and I saw that she'd posted something about that she was going to be on a morning show in Trinidad, right, where she lives, and she was going to be interviewed because she's an author. And there was something about Hazel's personality that was very attractive to me. And I thought, well, because she's exudes warmth, and there's so much coldness in this world. So I was like, wow, Hazel Ann Lynch, man, that's a name that for some reason I thought, people are going to remember that name. What's the special magic of Hazel, right? So I watched this show, and she was on the show, and she was introducing her character, which is Senior Fluffy. And Senior Fluffy is is a it's a French cat. He's a French cat, but he has a Spanish name. And Hazel created this character back. several years ago when she was in living in New York, right? In not in Manhattan, but in whatever's not Manhattan. Sorry, I'm blanking. Yeah, so it's right.
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, right? So this character, this very, very bougie, uh, but not mentally sophisticated, very kind of naive owner, very rich, but very naive owner of Senor Fluffy is falls upon more difficult times, not necessarily harder times, but more difficult times, especially considering the lifestyle that Senor Fluffy, thank you very much, has become accustomed to, right? And Senor Fluffy has an attitude because entitled. And so in Senior Fluffy and then the sequel, Senior Fluffy, whatever the sequel is called, and in the workbooks we see, which is another element of Hazel's kind of genius entrepreneurial talent, we see this evolution of this character who starts out being a little asshole, and then he becomes a kind of a nice guy, and and then he becomes part of this whole troop of animals that has these incredibly interesting adventures. And I could see it as a graphic novel. I could definitely see it as a Steven Spielberg animated film. And it also has recipe in it. So for anybody who likes adventure stories, good storytelling, great storytelling, absolutely unique perspective, because in many respects, I feel Hazel is these characters. And so she has also a number of different related products related to Senior Fluffy. So in addition, that's not the full extent of it, because we could spend an hour on Senior Fluffy, but she's also very open to creative suggestions. Like, a lot of people get stuck in a kind of a mode where they're they want to be known for something, and also that becomes a trap as well, because especially in horror, where people will kind of not want you to expand your dimensions of what you can write about, right? And I'm known as a multi-genre writer. So I never wrote pure horror. I always wrote, it's always got a lot of erotica. It's always got a lot of extremely wrong humor, because William Gibson and William Burroughs, well, William Gibson is one of my biggest influences. John Shirley, who's one of my mentors in crime, is one of my biggest influences, right? But of course, going back to Stephen King and Clive Barker, always have a lot of humor as well as pathos and just raw humanity to them, right? And um, so when I started doing these literary anthologies about musicians, because I was originally a my writing horror kind of coincided with my being a rock journalist. And I kind of show you, I always got the the show and tell here, because this is just to give people a background, right? In how I came up with these anthologies and what inspires me. For example, bands like Cradle of Filth, right? And not so much now, and they're kind of assholes, to tell you the truth. Well, I mean, Sarah Jezebel Diva is a sweetie, but Denny, man, there's a reason why he's the only remaining band member. You know what he did? He in the video for the Death of Love, it's Sarah Jezebel he's never going to be on the show, obviously. But the video for The Death of Love has Sarah Jezebel Deva or Diva or whatever on the vocals, but it's another woman on, in the video who replaced her. I mean, that's just fucked up, right? I mean, it's one thing if you have like in the Probot video for Shake Your Blood by Dave Grohl, where you had Wino in the playing guitar with a broken E string, right? He doesn't actually play in the on the song, but he's in the video, right? That's different, right? Because it's Wino, he's iconic, but having a different, altogether different singer who's just like, lip syncing, right? It's got to be weird for the Cradle women as well. Anyway, so I did this magazine back in the day called Juggernaut, the magazine of extreme music, and um I had two women on the first on the the covers, and then it was complicated and they were anyway. But the first person I had on the cover was Karen Crisis, who's an amazing person, who is a healer, a witch, a a Reiki therapist, and a painter and a sculptor, as well as having the most amazing voice in heavy metal. And she did more recently. She did Karen Crisis, Gospel of the Witches, and actually wrote an article in Juggernaut where I called her the Exorcist sister, and she turned that into a women's clothing line, right? So she actually credited me in Brave Words and BuzzFeed and all that. She did a press tour where she gave me a shout out. So right on, right? But so then I would interviewed hundreds of bands like Typo Negative for Blood Songs magazine, which also featured people like Poppy Z. Bride and Edward Lee, blah blah blah. So there's a lot of connections between, obviously, if people are fans of Poppy Z. Bride or Caitlin R. Kiernan, they know that they're the heavy, heavy, heavy Bauhaus influence. Poppy Billy Martin talks about, pressing a tear-stained manuscript into Daniel Ash's, hands after a Love and Rockets show. And in the forward to White and White, a literary tribute to Bauhaus. And I also interviewed, you know, because of the proximity between film and music. There is not really a huge difference between these different forms. And I think a lot of people that I know, well, John Shirley, for example, is well known as a musician. He has several bands, as well as being a screenwriter, most famously of The Crow and Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And he also writes songs for Blue Oyster Cult, right? But I've also interviewed filmmakers, like I did this filmmaker interview with the Anthony Kane and Sasha DiMarino and Aisha Prigan of who made this film called Ashes and Flames, right? And so there was a lot of, and they were going to make a film out of my short story in Noir Erotica 3. So this is kind of a little, I also interviewed people like the fetish filmmaker. This has like Debbie Rochon in it, and a lot of, this is a really good resource for the B movies and kind of Death Bitch and Death Park-esque um, films, and I don't think they make it anymore. This is an interview I did with Maria Beatty, I call it Happiness and Slavery, Maria Beatty's World of Artful Cinema with an S, right? And this is about as much as I can show you on YouTube. And I remember like a couple of weeks after I did this interview, I interviewed G, was it Gitan Damon or Gitan Damon from Christian Death in near her house in Silverlake. Now, what does this have to do with anything? Well, the whole point is that when I when I asked Hazel on board with the Bauhaus anthology, she'd never heard of Bauhaus before. So but I figured that from our extensive conversations, I've had her on the show many times, that she was a gal who was open to not just not just other genres or other writing about different things, but also opportunities. So that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people understand or respect about Nocturnicorn books is that I'm sort of like trying to create opportunities for people that would not have existed before. And not because I'm such a nice guy, but because I feel that there's a need, a sort of sometimes the moment just calls for something, right? And when you're in a position to provide something unique, you kind of go for it. And so I asked Hazel, I said, "Hey, I've got this book that essentially came out of David J. Haskins from Bauhaus contributing an original poem to the Burroughs anthology, and as well as he's very generously contributed the lyrics to the day that David Bowie died to the Bowie anthology." And I said, "Hey, Hazel, you can write in a lot of different genres. Would you like to write a tribute to Bauhaus?" So she said, "Sure. Well, I have to do a little deep dive, right?" And so, and could you like tell all two of our viewers what happened next?
Well, I remembered I used to go a lot of clubbing back in the day. Well, not so much, but I was wondering, I remember I never really liked rock or punk or metal music. That is just me.
That's okay.
But sometimes you just hear it, people talking about it, and you assume you wouldn't like it. When you're younger now.
Right.
And I think one time I went to this place, it was near the sea. I forget what Westmore, or it had a nice place to dance, and people from all over the world used to come there, and this rock band came. But I don't know what made me went, but I can't remember the name of the metal band. It was like a goth metal band, I remember. And I used to always remember their name. And when I went, a lot of people. I was like, this thing must be going to be loud and so boring. And then, and then we were up front because I didn't want to miss anything, although I had those apprehensions. And I went. Was always like to give something a try, not because I mightn't like it, at least go and see. You never know.
Sure.
And that changed my mind from, some of the music. I was so um surprised that I could actually sing along, dance, know some of the words, and like, what? This is what it's called, what? And
Yeah.
I think I got to even speak to some of the band members, but I say
Nice.
I would go on Google, like a search to see what metal or rock band came. That must was in my 20s, early
Right.
20s, I guess. And I say, suppose it's this same rock band that Alex asked me to write about. Wouldn't that be something? But I didn't Google it to see, like,
Yeah.
what rock band came into Trinidad because it has so many concerts and stuff. And then I Googled them and I watched what they do. And I was like, I wonder if I could write this because, I don't say I'm an author to only write YA books, but I think I'm I love to try different things.
Yeah.
I don't want to be just known as the YA author, Senior Fluffy, although Senior Fluffy have a
Right.
big part but I just want to try different genres and write all kind of weird stories, not just weird, and just put it out there because it means something special to me.
Sure.
And I say, you know what? Let me try this thing and see if I could do something different. So I just Googled them and tried to put piece together, and I was like, I wonder if this song in Good Boy Next thing I try, and then I don't know if I basically think of failure, but sometimes, maybe that's part of it. Not really failure, but maybe not being good enough or the piece wouldn't be good enough. And I say, you know what? There's nothing to fear than fear itself. And we
That's
should
right.
all try
Yeah.
whatever we want at least one time, like my little live podcast on Facebook. I
Exactly.
mean,
Yeah.
it never goes right. I could never get in touch with a guest like you today. I couldn't find you, but people were intrigued that you're a horror writer and you're punk metal and all this, and then
Yeah.
it's to see people or other horror writers and like you're my friend and I never knew that. So I
Yeah.
said let me try something different, and it goes to get out in other anthologies and stuff as authors. I remember the
Mhm.
publisher told me that in New York she wanted to publish me, and I was so shy that I never called her because she was at a function in Brooklyn Ethical. I think that building is over 100 years old.
Wow.
This Jamaican American guy, he bought out his book, and I didn't know. And we just came dressed up. It was our usual Sunday writers workshop. And she was there. It had a lot of people, and I was like, what is the event? How with our camera people and thing, this guy. I was like, oh,
Right.
you bring out a book and you never tell me. Well, he's like, I tell it, So I patronized. Thank God I had money. I bought his book. A nice Jamaican guy, used to be a messenger, and he's very
Yeah.
good at writing and telling. Oh, his stories are so like,
Oh my
wow.
gosh.
Nice older guy. He live in Philly now, I think. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was so blown away, and it had so many people. But the publisher, she came up to me after because we had a lot of things to eat and drink, and food is my passion. Tea
Uh-huh.
and coffee, especially. Wanted to have something hot. I went to the
Mm.
table tree in a bake, and she came up to me and she said, "Hi, Hazel." And I watched her like, hmm? You know me? How you know my name? She said, "But you just when you read up because I read my story."
Right.
And she said, well, I heard you. I said, but look at how much people here. Did you meet me somewhere before? She
Uh-huh.
said, well, I remember your name because you're special. No, you would remember it. And I was like, what?
Yes, you
I was
are.
like,
Yes, you are.
I don't know, thank you.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it was like more than 50 people, I believe. And I was like, but out of all these people, how I find it kind of strange, maybe, I don't know. And then she asked me, where did I get the idea for that story? I said, girl, sorry to call you girl, but girl, there's so many characters in my head and they're
Yeah.
not paying rent and it's time they start because I was like,
Not paying
I
rent.
just, yeah, they're not paying rent and it's time they
Time
start.
to put them to work, right?
Yeah. So by the
Right?
time I get up there, dear,
Yeah.
when they go to sleep there, dear, and as I turn, it's like, God. So she said, where did you get the idea for that story? And I was like, girl, sometimes, if I watch a movie or I read a book, the characters, like they stay with me. And sometimes, like if I read a fairy tale, like Big Bad Wolf or whatever, I always remember always ask myself, what was the reason what is his story? Why did he become bad? Why did they call him bad? Is he really bad because he's
Right.
trying to eat some wolves? Or, what
Yeah.
is his story?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
What's this deal?
that's why I wrote the fairy tale, which will be out soon, hopefully,
Oh,
as
cool.
well. All the
What's the name of the book that we're
not so
talking about?
charming after all.
I'm sorry?
Not so charming after all.
Not so charming after all.
But
Okay.
it didn't come out as yet. But hopefully, before I'm trying to get it out before my birthday.
Okay.
Mm.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy
But it's,
birthday.
but it's
Happy
July the
birthday.
27th. July the 27th. It's
Oh,
coming.
okay.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
mine's July 2nd.
July the 2nd. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, you're nearly a lioness, but that's okay. We could accept you into the thing, a lioness
The
title.
A
collective
lioness.
awe.
Yes. I'm a Leo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But we are all
Oh.
lions.
We are
And we
Okay.
all
Yeah, I was gonna ask
we
you
are
because
all lions.
mm-hmm.
Hazel and Lynch. We are all lions.
Yes.
I.
So I was
Collective
pretty
awe.
shy, and she keep asking me questions. So I say I always think of characters, even I finish watch a movie. Like what became of the character? What became of that bad guy? That I don't know. My head is always thinking. It's like sometimes when I sleep, that's the only time I really get a rest.
Mm.
And she says she never really thought. I guess it was a fairy tale, must be something with the pigs. She never thought of the fairy tale character beyond the fairy tale. I said, what? You never? She said, well, boy, my mind must be back. And then she said, she find it so interesting. And she asked me, well, what are going to do with it? I said, well, in my mind, I'm writing a book because I have a lot of stories on these
Mhm.
characters.
Yes.
Modern day, because did the Prince Charming and Cinderella get married? When they got married, did they ever had children? Was he really charming? That's why I say not so charming after all, because she found out he was not
Mm.
that charming. He only pretended. He was a womanizer, in my book at least. It's a little bit naughty, or on the
Mm.
verge of naughty, you know. And I just wrote it, and I think it have a lot of laughter in it, and then I think it could teach you a lot of things, you know. Sometimes you're married and you expect something in your spouse, but you don't. Sometimes marriage or relationship is now how you expect you get a shock thing. So I did it, and then I think I lose that opportunity. I met her 3 times, and then she's like, "You're not just going to call me," but I was really too shy. And some months after, I told my writing mates in Brooklyn Grand Army Library, and one American guy say, "Let me tell you something. Publishers no, don't matter that you're in America. They don't just come off the street and walk up to you
Sure.
and say that they publish your work."
Mhm.
And I was like, no. And I didn't know. I thought it was like a normal thing, like you see on the TV, maybe. I
Yeah.
said, "Oh, and that was it. But I say, you know what? Sometimes opportunity pass you because of certain reasons. Well, that was
Mm.
on my bad. But you never know. I think my ship is coming again my way sometime soon, never give up hope. And I mean, my book is out there already booked. So, I mean, I started my journey. So, you know,
And we have Daniel G. Snethen in the house.
Hi,
mm,
Daniel
That's
J.
hello,
Stephen.
that's an unusual name.
author of this,
Uh,
among many other books, from Blood Pudding Press, put out by our mutual friend and collaborator Juliet Cook. And Juliet Cook is neurodivergent AF, um, because she always packages these things in these very um, unusual ways. I mean, her books are not anything you can just pick up a book like you're not going to find this just anywhere. It's a very textural, very kind of interactive, cool, um, immersive experience to have a Juliet Cook chapbook, and it's a rare opportunity. I don't have anything out from Juliet. Blood Pudding Press is and Juliet Cook is brimming with poetry, art, and oddities. Well, that's for sure. So this is Juliet Cook, our mutual friend, a great friend, and co-author of many poems. And this is something called Pediophobia by Daniel that was put out by Blood Pudding Press in 2019. So more recently, Daniel and I have been working on a few collaborations. And so Daniel is many things. He's an educator. He lives on the Pine Ridge Native American Reservation in South Dakota, and he's a naturalist. He teaches high school, and he tracks the movements of species like the burying beetle. The last time we had him on the show, we spent about 3 hours. I think one of those hours we were just talking about the burying beetle. Like for people who aren't in the loop, what is a burying beetle? It's a beetle that lives on corpses. And he also has had I believe up to 3 pet rattlesnakes. He's highly unusual guy, very gifted guy. He's also a short story writer and a poet and very, very interesting person. So let's welcome Daniel G. Snethen to the show.
Hi, Daniel.
Hello. Nice to meet you all.
Welcome,
Great to meet
Daniel.
you too. You also sing. I was enjoying
Oh
your
yeah,
singing
yeah.
video.
He's
I
also
love your beard.
yeah.
Look like Santa Claus.
I love the beard too.
I've been called Santa
Of
many times.
course, I'm just seeing you and I'm just thinking about Chris Kingle. It's just like, wow.
So
What kind
so
of name is Snethen?
yeah,
Is it a
yeah.
German name or?
Good name. Good question.
I think it's either German or Dutch.
Mm, I love it. It's very unusual. I have a thing for names. Snethen.
Oh, I do
Very
too.
unusual.
Hmm.
Sneethen sounds like somebody who would own a pet rattlesnake.
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah.
I would not be coming to that person's house. I'll stay outside and going, Snethen, Daniel, I'm here, but I'm going to the store. Yeah, no, snakes and spiders are not my thing.
Rattlesnakes are
And
dangerous.
a rattlesnake? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
no.
I almost encountered one of those when I went on a road trip and I was out with my friend. We were in Arizona and we were just exploring like a desert area and I heard a rattlesnake
Oh no.
really close and it was like the first and only time I've ever heard a rattlesnake in
Ooh.
real life and it was like, oh my God, let's get out of here right now.
Did it have a lot of bush? Was it a bushy area or just
No, it
a
was
single
very
place?
dry desert, but it
Mm,
had like little um bushy kind
yeah.
of dry arid
Well,
area
at least you
plant.
could have seen if anything. Man, I would
Yeah, I
have
was looking for it, but I couldn't see
couldn't see.
it.
Ooh.
But I could hear it. It sounded so
Mm,
close.
oh my
I was
God.
so scared.
Maybe it was Daniel own. He must have got away.
Ah!
Daniel.
Oh my
Maybe it was
gosh.
Daniel.
I'm very intrigued by, Daniel works in education. I'm curious what what you're teaching now.
Yeah.
Well, I I live about as far away from the ocean as you can, but I teach a class of marine biology,
Oh wow.
wow,
Oh.
and we are going to take a end of the year field trip. I wish to the ocean, but
Nice.
to a but actually to the Omaha Zoo, they have an aquarium there with an excellent penguin exhibition or exhibit there. So
Wow.
that's what we're doing with that class. And
Hmm.
I have another class that I teach some paleontology too.
Excellent.
Oh.
And then right now I got 3 classes that I'm teaching Lakota ethnoastronomy too.
Wow,
So,
that's so
so
fascinating.
we're learning a lot of Lakota star knowledge, and um,
So
yeah, it's
so
actually quite interesting.
so it's like astrophysics but mythology. Is that it or
Sort of.
Well, the for 3,000 years, the Lakotas have followed the stars,
Yeah.
yeah,
and
fascinating.
much of it it's very much part of their culture and their cosmology and everything. Um, but I'm also trying to tie it into science and the way
Yeah.
uh, a way non-Lakotas understand science, and try to see where it's really um, trying to see that there's a lot of things that the Lakotas have been aware of, um, just because that's the way they lived for 3,000 years.
Wow, that is amazing. So maybe a bit like the Mayans. I know that were very early astronomers and
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of that stuff, even like Stonehenge is probably a telescope,
Mhm.
right.
I mean, it's common, I think, amongst indigenous people,
Mhm.
worldwide to have used the stars as their guide because it changes a bit over a period of a year, but then that's their constant.
Yeah.
And so they, especially if you're a nomadic people,
Yeah,
how do you know when to move? And
Mhm.
that's
right.
based on how things align with the stars.
That's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah.
Very
I use
recently, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, I like to use the stars too, actually. Like I kind of remember around what time of year where certain constellations are, and it kind of helps me like remember where like, you know, in what relation to what different constellations at that time of year. It's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
So that's so cool that you're teaching about that. Oh, I wanted to add that you know how you mentioned Stonehenge. I found out that I don't remember how long ago it was, but it was kind of recently. I guess in Lake Michigan, like way deep down in Lake Michigan, they found some kind of structures that are similar to the formation of Stonehenge down in the bottom of the lake. So they think it might be a kind of a similar thing, possibly.
Yeah,
Um,
well, even like there's things like medicine wheels that have been made out of rocks that
Hmm.
different areas that actually are they're like they're like telescopes or sundials or whatever. I mean, they look at that and see how everything's lining out. It's really interesting when you start,
Yes,
and to think that this that had this knowledge 3,000 years ago is amazing to me.
that is
that's amazing.
amazing.
That's amazing. You
That's so
know,
exciting that you teach that.
yeah. You
Boy,
know,
I could learn a lot from you.
recently, actually, seemed to have happened almost overnight. But see, we have a friend, a mutual friend, who's I, you know, it started out because this woman, Cassandra, is not her actual name; it's her pen name, Cassandra, Ele, and I don't know how to pronounce it because it's Greek. Alagoskufi, Alagoskufi is a very very well known poet in Greece and has gotten some very very you know you know distinguished scholarships and so forth. And we were first in contact because of the protests against the government of Greece kind of tried to bury the story about these train derailments that were actually had a lot to do with government corruption and contracts and things they didn't want exposed. And so the government of Greece covered up who was responsible for these train derailments that killed 50 young people. And it was the 2 year anniversary of this train derailments.
Mm.
And so Cassandra and some friends of hers uh, spearheaded this protest, and it's very, very important and famous Greek artist was kind of did this drawing that was almost like brought a lot of people together around this cause of trying to get to the root of why did these train derailments happen. And so she contributed an article at my request. I asked her to write something up about these train derailments, and so I published it on Small Bear Review. And then we started to talk and then become friends. And she wrote a very, very beautiful thing that was a kind of a tribute to me that kind of compared me to Odysseus in the Odyssey. And so I was so touched. I wrote something to her. It was dedicated to her. That was a kind of a rejoinder response, sort of more about the Odyssey and the situations and characters in the Odyssey. And she liked it so much that not only did she translate it into Greek, but she had the vice president of PEN Greece, um, um, Dimitris Philelis, who's a very, very distinguished scholar of classical Greek, read this on YouTube in Greek, which has never been done before. I mean, they've never had an outsider, I mean, a foreigner, read their poetry because it's all Greek poets and it's all famous Greek poets and it's all dead poets, dead Greek poets, right? So I was like, hearing my words in the ancient Greek language, read by a classical scholar, blew my mind. And there's something about the language, even though I don't know it, I don't read it, I don't write it, I don't know. Greek is very arcane and odd to me, but listening to the recitation, it felt like nature. It felt like oceans and blowholes and turtles and and swift ships, the all those epithets that were attached to Odysseus, right? In Homer, it always starts out not just, well, one thing happened and another thing happened, but fleet-footed, etc. The way that the Greeks personified nature, and it has me thinking about how there's really not essentially that much of a difference between mythology, between art forms, and science, and I guess what you call sort of esoteric knowledge, such as magic, because it's all I don't place a lot of strict division between these things, right? A lot of really, really, really very, very brilliant people that I know are, follow occultism. It's not stupid. It's just how you apply it. But I mean, you can look at, for example, sort of Kabbalah, right? And you can see, well, there's a relationship between numbers and pure, there's a relationship between pure mathematics and astrophysics and poetry and music, which is absolutely right. You can see all these patterns in nature as well, as sort of like the chambered nautilus, right? Has the same qualities and characteristics as certain cloud formations, as you'll see in, and then you have things like the like a Mandelbrot sequence, for example. You have fractals, for example. And so a lot of these profound archetypes that you see over and over again in mythology also see the same things in nature. And the Greeks saw the world as a single unified whole, right? They didn't see, oh, that's a rock, so therefore we can't be divine. Oh, that's a pebble that was thrown by Zeus, right? Right. And I love how human the gods were, but also I think that's often discussed that the Greek gods are so human. But what I don't often hear is people talk about how the Greeks infused our world with the with the paranormal, the supernatural, and these deep kind of connections, not only to nature, but to a kind of our greatest aspiration, right? Our greatest aspiration. People always talk about, it's a cliche, that that we seek our fortunes in the stars. But I think that that's what language and poetry and art can do is connect all these things in a way that's very soulful. I don't know. That's my just what I think.
That makes sense.
I wonder what happened to Nicole. We always lose some people. Well, we have Hazel. So
I drew a little doodle of Hazel. It, I don't know if you can
oh,
see it.
that's stunning. That's exactly. That's so beautiful. Hazel. What happened to Hazel? Oh my God, that's beautiful. That's
Yeah, I don't know if she could see
you're
it.
so good, man. You're so good.
Oh, it's just a little marker sketch, but
So let's see. So the Lakota and they're kind of they're tracking the stars. And what have you been doing as far as your like poetry or short stories or anything like that?
Um, well, the last couple things I did is, I started this collaborative poem with you,
Yeah,
and I wanted to get Are You Serious involved, but you know, must have been busy or something. I'd never heard of him until I listened to him on your show a couple times. I thought
yeah,
he was pretty interesting because he's talking about an area of that I just don't know that much about. Um,
right.
but I find it interesting. So, anyhow, I think I finished that poem,
Oh, cool.
uh, Our Psychedelic Experience with an
Yeah.
Indonesian Komodo Dragon.
Oh, I love that.
And I have a copy of it to read if,
Oh, yeah, I would love to hear that. Yeah.
And then I was going through a bunch of my stuff, and I found a poem that I had apparently written, like I don't know, 20 years ago or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really remember writing it. But uh, it's kind of interesting. So, anyhow, those are the two things that I have. As far as short stories, since I sent you Guilt, I haven't written anything along that way. I've been really busy with
Sure.
school and
Yeah.
everything. Um, and then also another project I've been working on. Um, I don't know if you know who Charles Cicerella is, but
Who?
Charles Cicerella.
Not as such. No, no.
I know him probably because of Juliet Cook. Okay, so how this works. You meet different people, from other people you meet. But I mean, I've never met any of these people in real life.
Right.
But he's putting together an album of poetry and music combined. Part of it's just poetry, part of it's music and poetry. And he asked me to write liner notes for it.
Oh, wow, that's right. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, I never did that before. But anyhow, I finished. That was a project I got finished, and he's really happy with it. So I think that's good.
That's great.
And I'm just any opportunities that come my way, I try to jump on them if I can. But I've got another show that I'm going to be doing. At some point, I got to tell them when I can.
Right.
Somebody else asked me to be part of a radio program, so I can't remember the name of the thing. I have a hard time remembering everything, but I mean, I would recognize it if I saw it. But So yeah, I mean, I was looking forward to doing this show, and then I'm going to figure out when I have time to do this other show. And
Yeah.
I figure any exposure you get as a poet has to be hopefully good exposure. And I mean, I write short stories too. I'm thinking of myself more as a poet, but
Yeah.
um, I've actually had some good luck getting my short stories published too. So
You know, Nicole had a really good idea and she had to run into some other stuff, but which was to have she was asking me whether she could submit something for a collective paw, and I said, "What's a collective paw?" And she said, "Well, she thought it was an anthology," and and then I said, "Well, I'm open to having an anthology called the collective paw, but what it would be about? Well, it'd be about our friends and having our friends just contribute." I was thinking of that. I was actually thinking we've kind of developed a stable of return writers, and it's just it blows my mind that we've kind of created or fostered an environment where people like Caitlin R. Kiernan feel comfortable just sending me stuff, right? That's not that's not usual. But I think that they're very unusual people, and we're all kind of different. I mean, Juliet and Juliet Cook, man. Um, it's I love that difference. And Ellen Mabey and Emily Frank were all kind of different, you know. So having a collective Paul anthology in and of itself is a really great idea. And I'm I'm just messaging with with Nicole right now. So okay, so anyway, so I was thinking of doing that. We would have a collective paw anthology, and it wouldn't necessarily be themed, but it would be kind of unstructured. And unlike these other anthologies where people have to more write to to certain specifics, like we have a theme or whatever. If people wanted to submit things that were kind of never got off the ground, or they couldn't get published, or for whatever reason, that was just like the the sort of the misfit mutt of their writing, you know, trunk or whatever, that this would be kind of, oh, oh, these little misfit stories and poems, that would find a little home, a little shelter in a collective paw anthology. Isn't that cute? Doesn't that just break your heart? I don't know, man. But I get sentimental easily just thinking about stupid shit. But if we could have a collective paw anthology where it would be just like we would have it for. I liked, I liked Nicole's idea of having kind of like a benefit for the stray cat. He works with the stray cats,
Yeah.
not the band. But I would think that people would find that attractive. It just seems that people like Michael H. Hansen and you and and there's other people like that are like John Yamras, for example, and Catfish McDarris, who really and were mutual friends of Cat, right? And who really kind of just want to be part of this. And so I don't know. I mean, we've got so many projects out, but I've developed a system. We're working with Adrian Baldwin, who's so reliable that we can just get these books out the door on a more consistent basis. And I've been thinking that it's almost like what I aspire to do is have something that's a combination of the traditional anthology, which is more you would have authors writing about one theme. And the difference with Nocturnicorn books is that all of our authors are distinguished. It just happens to have fallen in place that way. I mean, usually you have because I've been paying more attention to how anthologies are usually done because I always just did it the way I wanted to do it, right? And so it'd have people like Lucy Taylor, Sephora Giron, Paula D. Ashe who contribute things and publish it. We even had Ramsey Campbell in one of our books. And then more recently, when I kind of got over my being my sort of like my feeling like, oh, I couldn't ask David J. Haskins for something. I couldn't ask Jarbo for something. I was like, well, why not? Why couldn't you? Why couldn't you do this? You actually know these people. Why can't you just ask them, right? Ask and you shall receive. And that's just worked out so well. So for going from just often it's the case that when you when you don't follow the rules because you don't really know what the rules are. Because I never followed anybody's lead. Like when I decided to do anthologies, it was just who wants to participate, right? It's sort of like let's put on a show, kids, right? And so that's I like to see it as more like putting out a newsletter for friends, FRENS. And and I'm such a softy, Pickles knows.
You are.
I don't like edginess. I don't like pretension. I don't, and it's one thing that kind of okay, I'm not going to talk about Jeannie Richter, but although I would sorely tempted, but see, there are people who are actually assholes. I'm sorry I went there, but who want everybody to think of them as nice people. And they go around doing horrible things like spreading lies about me. And I'm sorry, but Jeannie Richter claimed that I was threatening her for years and that I was actually lived 20 minutes away from her, which all this is nonsense, right? And she has all these followers and she publishes people like Graham Masterton, who we do as well. But it just blows my mind that people can be so out there with the cruelty and harm and the lies towards innocent people, and that there's no repercussions whatsoever, right? You can just lie about people and put it out there on publicly on social media and get away with that shit. I don't, I
Yeah,
don't, I don't understand that.
it's just because people are keyboard warriors.
But I mean, she literally,
They're behind a screen, so they're living in a reality where nobody's ever told them no to their face, or maybe they've never just been,
it,
you
it,
know,
it wasn't
put
just me. I
put.
mean, she literally put it out on Facebook and I believe on Instagram and some other, and X, that I had physically threatened her and that she'd gotten a restraining order against me, which was total complete
Slander,
bullshit.
really.
I mean, it was
It's
just like bullshit.
defamation.
That's character defamation. I just cannot
Yeah.
believe that
Technically, we probably could sue
we
her.
could sue her
I
ass, right?
probably shouldn't talk about that shit, but
Well, well,
yeah.
I don't, I mean, and what she really hates, she's threatened to sue me 5 times for the crime of what was the crime? Using her name,
Mm.
saying that she's lied about me. It's like I'm not supposed to use her name, so Janie Rector, fuck you. Okay, and I have to get that off my chest because, this is a public forum and that there are consequences for your behavior. You lie about people and that there are consequences for your behavior. Now that we have a very big profile, and a lot of distinguished people are, watching us and listening to our broadcasts, and I'm known internationally and translated into internationally several languages. So this is what happens. It's a fuck around and find out experience, you know. And there are people who don't want to be associated with me because it makes them nervous when I tell the truth. We've
Mhm.
reached a point in our society, in our culture, in our time, where it is considered a social, not just a social faux pas, but an actually a something that could get you, you know, canceled or whatever, or could get you, exiled from certain writing communities if you literally because you tell the truth. Now, this is astonishing to me. I wasn't going to go here, but I wasn't going to go there. But when I keep seeing, oh, so and so is bragging about, who is it? Marianne Pacheco Chapelle, who's in the Gregor thing, who is bragging about, oh, being in the horror scene. I'm like, okay, that's great. That's great. But you're publishing with me and you don't feel it's a contradiction. You know, I don't really understand. I mean, I would never tell people who to publish with, but at the same time, it's sort of like, Michael H. Hansen, bless his heart, when I asked him to pull out of whatever Casey Hill, he did without asking any questions, without any questions, he did. And I would never ask anybody else to, but it's just sort of like, to me, it's like I begin to wonder about people's principles, and I'm sorry I got on my high horse here, but it's sort of like we're living in this era where just outright lies are the new truth. I don't know, man. I'm sorry I went there, but I just, and there's the same people who kind of, you know, mocked my brain trauma and sort of, and there's literally videos out there that question, the fact that I actually received this box of razor blades with suicide instructions. And it was Jeannie Richter who actually was complicit in furthering the idea that this had not occurred. And there's several videos out there on YouTube, with these outright lies. It's more than even defamation of character. And then Jeannie went to Ramsey Campbell and told him that I was violent and dangerous and I was threatening her. And so to me, as a moral person who attempts to live with some degree of ethics and accountability, right? It's like, can you just say anything? Why is it that it's worse for me to tell the truth and to defend myself than it is to to attempt to not only smear somebody's character, but attempt to kill somebody? I don't understand that. I don't understand how these people can get away with it or have so many supporters, because it is it is it's not just when you're when you tacitly agree not to talk about the murder threats. When you tacitly agree not to talk about that shit, then it's silence is consent. Silence is consent. It's just as bad. It's just as bad. All the people who were silent and continue to remain silent are still complicit. And so it doesn't matter in the end because our anthologies are wildly successful. They have some of the most famous, not just authors, but some of the most famous musicians. And, we've got a collective paw going on. And
Yeah.
it's just it's just a beautiful thing. So like Aaliyah's art, it's mesmerizing, it's
I
beautiful,
don't
it's
know if
exotic,
anyone
it's
can see
rare,
that.
and it's subliminal, right? You can feel the powerful forces of nature. You can see the butterflies. You can see the nose and the tongue, the mouth, and the giraffe and all the wild creatures, you know. And so this is what I'm talking about. It's more important, but I think in the end, nobody's going to remember them.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
nobody's going to remember them.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I mean, I just don't try, I just don't even like to think about them or waste my energy on them just because,
So,
why lose that energy to
well,
somebody?
what happens is when I go through and I Google my name because I want to see what's going on, you know, out there, and I see we've done many
Oh,
shows, but then I see all these new shows that are popping up what are questioning the razor blade incident that are, and it's just like a awful sinking feeling that goes into my chest, you know, that are we even had like Jesse Deadman has made several videos, and you know apparently he talked to Pelton, and Pelton gave him the full scoop about the real story about the razor blades. You know, there's videos out there that are just like people going on and on and on about mocking me and making fun of me and saying that the razor blade incident never occurred. And
yeah.
it's being spearheaded by the same people who said the fucking razor blade.
You
You
should
know?
send them to me so I can report them too.
Okay, I will. But it's just terrifying to me. It's like my my my
They're
nerves are
just
flooded
keyboard
with adrenaline.
warriors.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but it has real world consequences.
Yeah.
I can't help how I feel about this.
No,
And
absolutely.
I've never heard of this happening to a single other to anybody ever. You know, I've never heard of this kind of thing happening to anybody else. Like this level of
Yeah, I don't know. That's unreal. That's
it's
some
unreal.
wild. Yeah.
And the fact that they attacked you as well.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
to try to split
Yeah.
apart.
Yeah, I don't
Like
know.
a
I don't
game,
know like
man.
why I don't understand people. I think it's really
Some
ridiculous.
people are so horrible. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
they need to get validated when they hurt other people. I don't know. This world is filled up of some crazy, evil, twisted people,
Yeah.
and like they prey on and I don't know. I wouldn't say easy, but they prey on people who maybe sometimes people need to prey on others to feel. I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah, to feel
it's
like
a sad thing,
valuable.
to
Like
just
they've
to innocent people. For what reason? Just to, you know, that makes no sense. When you should be helping people out here,
Yeah.
just let people rise. Don't And why do I don't sometimes I sit down and I never understand why people do bad things to hurt others. I can't fathom the thought that some
Mhm.
Yeah. And what I think that
out
there's
of the
I think that this is where kind of creativity comes in because I can't help but respond in kind of creative ways, you know, and sort of it will circulate into my subconscious and then I will come up with a solution. And sometimes the solution is satire. And
Yeah.
you know, that's most satisfying is
Oh yeah.
when I set some of my characters to work on them,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. The sense of humor is my best like medicine for that too.
Right.
It helps offset the absurdity of everything.
Like like like
Ah,
like the no bitch poem is really
yeah.
it's a classic. I know it's a war horse. I always love that poem.
I'm so glad you liked it.
And you said that there's another one that you're that's in the works, kind of.
Yeah, I'm working on one for you.
No,
Yeah,
the,
I'm kind of a slow writer, but I've got some good lines
the Tobit
already.
cycle.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Daniel. I know you published with Jeannie, but she's a terrible person. I don't mind saying that. She really is. You know, and it's not just it doesn't involve if it just involved me, it would be horrific in every sense of the word. What they've done to me, but it involves my parents. When I reported that Casey Hill, here, Jeannie Richter, good buddy, Casey Hill, was involved with complicit with the murder threats and the cover up. She she threatened to sue my elderly parents. She's threatened to sue my elderly parents. My dad, he's going blind. He's profoundly deaf. He has dementia, okay, so not only did they send, you know, did her pal Christopher B. Pelton send me the razor blades with the suicide instructions, and then his pal Jeannie Richter and Casey Hill doubled down on kind of the cruelty by threatening to sue me when I talked about it. But then when I continued to talk about it and continued to put the evidence online, they threatened to sue my elderly parents, you know, and there were zero repercussions. And when I talk about her, then she threatens to sue me again. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. So it's not just something people say, for historically, people have told me, oh, well, if you just ignore them, they will go away. I tried that, and the videos, the threatening videos continue to this day. The defamation of character continues to this day. The murder threats continue to this day. And people tell me, oh, well, when somebody threatens to, not only threatens to turn you into the police, but literally puts out a restraining order against you, that's, that puts my, not only my life, but my parents' life at risk, you know, and it's just horrific, So this is like where I this one the horror community can fuck off as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the Bram
Well
Stoker
said.
people totally ignored me. The Horror Writers Association totally ignored me. SIFWA totally ignored me. When I reported this, um, I sent them all these emails with all the evidence, and it was just like completely ignore, 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 ignore. The current president of Horror Writers Association, Angela Eureka Smith, is directly involved with this shit. And of course, the Bram Stoker nominations just came out. Of course, didn't get it. I wrote the best book. I wrote two of the best books of the year. You know, which were acclaimed by people like John Shirley and John Palisano, who was the past president of Horror Writers Association. You know, people like Are You Serious? People you know, like the guy who wrote the fucking Crow movie. But I will never get a Bram Stoker nod because of this bullshit. And I'm not even bitter. It's just sort of like it just brings it all home to me how perfidious and how insane this 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 kind of our social, like the community has become, where outright like it's inconceivably evil. What they are, who they are, is evil, and they write about evil things, but then their virtue signaling is always like Jeannie Richter was on her Facebook, and she was, taking a poll. She was asking her friends and supporters and contributors to vote on what a nice person she is, at the very same time that she was demeaning and threatening both Leah and myself. So she was online saying, getting all her supporters to say what a nice person she is. And it's like, is that acceptable to people? I mean, because it seems like a double standard. Like if I so much as fart, you know, like people accuse me of rape and murder and child molesting. It's like if I my very existence is cause for some people to try to want to murder me and to cause them to want to destroy me. And yet other people can get away with incredible cruelty towards the disabled to the elderly, and it's like it's no fucking big deal, right? So I don't know how this happens. And
Um,
and and I wasn't going to talk about it, but as 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 my brain condition gets worse and it's harder and harder and harder with my parents and everything to kind of take care of them, and I can't take care of myself. And so they always use that against me too. Anything I say like that, like what I just said, they'll take one line and they'll say, forget about the more than 1,000 pages of sheer brilliant, anthologies that we just put out. We just put out 4 anthologies in a row.
yes.
And
So
I think if
Well,
people know you, they wouldn't even think such things. People who really know you and care for you, they wouldn't
mhm,
think such things.
yeah,
But
mhm,
sometimes I don't know. I'm just saying, for me, we
yeah,
can't give these naysayers and these horrible people like, to always talk about them, and give them that kind of, I don't know. But sometimes you have to, I know it's a deeply horrible and hurtful situation, but sometimes, just let it see, just let it talk. Sometimes I think
mhm,
being a little, I don't know. I think for me, but not say
yeah.
much. I will just talk and then be quiet after.
no,
And
no,
just
no, that's okay. I mean, I'm certainly open to that. I didn't mean to. I didn't. I wasn't planning on that,
Mhm.
but
but
it's so hard
it's
for you.
so hard. And what I just as I'm
So,
just as a human being, like if I saw that something like this happening to another person, right? Like if I
Well,
saw,
yeah, I mean, you did for me, like you stood up for me
right?
immediately.
Yeah,
But yeah, but like I found it to where like spending spending so much energy on these assholes take for me, I found that it like drained me so much.
yeah,
Like I feel like I don't know, I can only I don't know. I only want to talk to people that are like decent to just decent
yeah.
common sense. Like Daniel here and Hazel
Daniel,
here
yeah.
and
Hazel
Nicole
and
and
Nicole, yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I find that positive people are so much more energizing. Well, I mean, I can be very negative at times too about certain things, but I try not to like let it make me, you know, be like
because it's so, I
hateful.
was saying that recently, why people in my country, I assume, sometimes they want to try something, but they always will come first. Well, I'm going for that job. Awesome. Woohoo.
Oh, wow.
Is that me?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Is that amazing?
When I
It's
saw
just
it just now, I said, but how that look like me? So, but then I said, must it wasn't me. But then I didn't have on the my ear thing, and I say I go to ask her, but then I say, let me don't. Maybe it's not even everything is not about you, girl.
Everything is about you,
I know
Not
girl.
the
that I,
feeling,
not
Yeah.
but
that I
but
think
yeah,
anything is,
that's
but that's
cute.
wonderful. Oh my
Wow.
God,
Oh, thank you.
So,
I
I'm
feel
glad
so
you like
touched.
it.
hey,
Glad
Yes,
you
of
like it.
course. Thank
I've
you.
never drawn you before, and I thought, what the heck? Let me use
Oh,
the opportunity, and so
that's
it's just like a
lovely.
I gotta close up shop pretty soon, but Hazel,
Alex, you're wonderful.
thank you.
You're a
I love
true
you too.
artist.
Yeah.
Just you're so wonderful. I don't know what people are just, they're losers. They are the losers and don't study their negativity. And you're the best at what you do. They're just, I think when people do bad things and say bad things about people and hurt people, I think they are jealous. They cannot be the people. Your friends, your everything.
Yeah.
I think it's just jealousy.
It's just
Yep.
jealousy, and it's just they lack squeezins, maybe they're not getting enough squeezins.
Maybe their mother didn't get breastfeed them enough. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't get enough breast
Ooh,
milk.
damn,
Oh, I don't
gotta
know.
hurt.
Is
That
that
gotta
naughty?
hurt.
Is that too naughty to say? I don't
Yes,
know. Is that
gotta
naughty?
hurt,
No,
man.
but
Yeah, Jeannie Richter, I
that's a
wonder if she
valid
was
theory.
insufficiently fed,
I like to
or
be
maybe,
naughty
or maybe she
sometimes.
was
I'm not
breastfed
very
alcohol.
naughty.
I'm sorry. What are you gonna do? Sue me? Go ahead. You
Yeah.
literally threatened to dox me and report me to the police, so you can fuck off, Jeannie Richter.
But it have all the evidence there, so you don't need to be worried.
Yeah, there's
Everything what in darkness does come to light. Just
everything is
yeah,
going to come
yeah,
to
yeah.
light. I mean,
Yes,
the
it's
fact
only a
that
Yep.
matter
she
of
drinks
time.
like a fish, man.
Yeah.
She's out
And
there
okay.
like talking about me, So
You
anyway,
know why they talk about you? Because you are important, Alex.
I
Let people
know,
talk
That's
right?
about me.
right.
I
Living
feel
rent
proud.
free
Let it
in your
talk because
head,
I'm important. Let it
Hmm.
talk.
right?
So
So
let them
yeah,
talk.
man, thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
Wow,
you rock. You rock.
I know I
So
do. I know.
yeah.
So do you.
So hey,
So do you. It's a collective paw. It's a
yeah.
collective paw.
And senior for fear for Paul. So he giving you a bounce there. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Pour
So
on instead of rock on. Pour on. I don't know. That makes no sense.
okay, so I'm gonna close up shop because when I get like this, I don't like myself,
That's
and
okay. We love you.
we had a wonderful show, and
Yes.
really interesting discussions,
Yes.
and especially like Daniel. I mean, talking about the Lakota and the astrophysics, and that's really fascinating stuff.
It is.
I would love to
Daniel was really,
explore that
really
more
smart.
at some point. So
Heck
okay,
yeah.
um, so just a big squeezins, and
Yes.
I'm gonna put this up on YouTube, and then we're gonna
Squeezins.
call it
Yeah.
quits. I love you so much.
Squeezing.
Okay,
Tell your
so
Squeezy
parents I
hug.
said I and Senior Fluffy send them a big hug and a big
Yay.
squeeze in, and I said hi.
I sure will.
Yes. But Alex, know that you're love, you're love, you're love.
I
So
love you
He
too.
is.
yes,
I love
don't
you too.
worry about and
Okay,
always love yourself no matter what.
and
You know?
I love you, Daniel, and I
Yeah.
love you, Aaliyah, and I
I
love
love you
you. So
too.
okay, um, so we'll see you online.
All right.
Okay, take care of
Okay,
yourself.
take care.
Nice meeting you, Mr. Oh gosh, it's Daniel. I can't pronounce that name anymore. Say it again.
Snethen. It rhymes with he.
Sneeder.
Okay, take
I
care.
love it. Maybe it will be a character.
I love it.
You
I
never
hope
know. It's
so.
unusual. Have a good night, everybody. Love
Good
and
night. Much love.
squeezes.